Okay, it is November 17th. It's a couple days past that big fight. Yesterday I was talking about how I was waiting for the Joe Rogan Experience, the Joe Rogan podcast, to come out so I could listen to it. Finally got a chance to listen to it this morning. Lots of interesting stuff coming out of there. First thing I wanted to talk about, though, was there's a controversy where I guess some stuff was said about Cyborg. They basically said Cyborg would make weight by cutting off her dick, which is like a horrible thing to say. I mean, it's something that female athletes deal with a lot. People making fun of their physique, calling them men. And it's really lowbrow humor. It's not something that's funny. I mean, these are athletes, anyway, it happens. It's something, like I said, that female athletes deal with. So back to this, I even retweeted what Cyborg said. She said that she was being bullied. When I listen to it, though, you kind of get a different feel for it. The guy who said it, I don't know what his name is. It's like Hinchcliffe, something Hinchcliffe. Anyway, so he said he's a roast comic. That's what he does for a living. He's a roast comic. So, he was saying that if he was to roast people in the UFC, he would say that Cyborg made weight by cutting off her dick, right? So Joe Rogan laughed. Dana White, I didn't really hear him laughing. So, I mean, it wasn't a funny joke, but it was said. I don't think any harm was meant out of it necessarily. Okay, so there's that. Then they talked about injuries. So injuries from UFC 193. Sorry, 193. Joanna Jędrzejczyk broke her hand. Everything else was fine. Valerie Letourneau, fine. The eye wasn't broken at all. She's pretty bruised up, right? Eyes are bruised up, legs are bruised up, but she's not, nothing's broken. Ronda Rousey does not have a broken jaw, but she had a really bad split in her lip. So, that'll take some time to heal. But, I mean, that kind of stuff heals up pretty fast. They had a plastic surgeon come in to stitch the lip from the inside out. Just so it doesn't leave any nasty scars. Actually, Dana White talked quite a bit about how they get the fighters plastic surgeons. Jessica Penne had one for her nose. I'm going to assume Raquel Pennington had one for that split that she had right in the middle of her forehead a couple fights ago. So, yeah, I mean, he's, I know a lot of people give him flack, but I guess they are taking care of them that way, right? That's the last thing Ronda wants or anybody wants her to have, is some big gnarly scar from having a split lip. I was pretty happy to hear about that. Next things up, they were talking about all this hate that Ronda's getting. Like, hate. Just people are just being horrible to her right now on the internet. Donald Trump said that she's not a good person. I mean, fucking Donald Trump. He's a fucking terrible person. And here he is calling Ronda Rousey a terrible person. Like, fucking, oh my god. Anyway, then Lady Gaga saying that's what happens when you don't touch gloves. I mean, fuck, like, Lady Gaga, I don't know. I'm not a fighter. She's not a fighter. Like, it's pretty crazy that these people feel so, I guess it's, they feel emotionally invested in it, but still pretty horrible that either of those two would say something when someone is so, down, really kicking someone when they're down, right? I don't know. I don't get it. But I guess Ronda's personality really had a lot of people feeling strongly about her loss. So, so I mean that's pretty much it about the podcast. Like I said, I'm sure I'm missing all kinds of stuff. They talked for 2 hours, but those are the main things that I took away. That nobody was really injured that bad. I mean, Joanna's hand, that really sucks. But she's been there before, so hopefully they can get it healed up. In other MMA news, Angela Hill, so she was cut from the UFC. This isn't from the podcast. Angela Hill was cut from the UFC, I believe it's last week or the week before that. So she's now signed with Invicta FC. So Invicta's a really cool promotion. They only do they only do women's MMA. So that's where a lot of the women come from to go into the UFC. That whole tough season with the 115 pounders was pretty much all Invicta fighters. So yeah, I mean it's a good move for her. I mean she didn't win while she's in the UFC. So hopefully getting into Invicta, she can win some fights and she can really like build up her confidence. So I'm excited. She's a cool person. She's a cool fighter. So, hopefully, like I said, she can rack up some wins and maybe get back into the UFC. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. Like I said, I the podcast was cool. It was fun to listen to, and it was fun to see their perspectives on this fight because, I mean, Joe Rogan's a huge fight fan. And he's a huge Ronda fan, so it was interesting listening to him, talk about how conflicting it was, how he was so happy for Holly, but at the same time, he's so he feels so bad for Ronda. If you haven't listened to it, Joe Rogan Experience, it's an interesting podcast. It's worth a listen. They're very long, but there's some cool stuff. He's definitely a big fan of MMA and a big fan of women's MMA too. So, yeah, definitely a good listen. All right, good night.